My name is Aaron Ladd, host of the Chiefs Squad Show here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm usually not partial to other Tigers inside the SEC, but the Chiefs grabbed two LSU Tigers in this draft, and I like both of them. I'm all aboard the Nuss Bus. I'll tell you why in this new episode.
And I'm JC Pearson. This is our first chance to talk to you guys about all of the Chiefs draft picks, and we'll go in depth with all of them and more.
I'm Ryan Tracy, and I am ready to tell you why some are going to be on the field and some are not out of this draft class. It's a lot of pressure.
And I'm Darren Smith. I'm going to tell you whether or not this Chiefs draft class is just as good as what the Chiefs served us for dinner Thursday night.
Chiefs Kingdom, stand up. It's the Chiefs Squad. Everything Kansas City Chiefs every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from Arrowhead Stadium, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Squad up. The Chiefs Squad Show starts now.
Chiefs Squad Show is off and rolling on a Tuesday. We appreciate you being with us. It's Aaron Ladd, JC Pearson, Ryan Tracy, and Darren Smith. Our first show post the 2026 NFL Draft. We were with you live for the first pick. We will discuss each and every pick since then, as well as the UDFA signings and how it possibly impacts the hot seat under Spags, or if there even is one. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things that make podcasts and platforms successful. We greatly appreciate it. Don't make us get on our hands and knees and beg. I think Darren might if he had to, if you haven't subscribed yet. Special shout out to those that are making us their first listen, as well as members of our Everydayers Club already. Let's go through. Actually, I know we would go through every pick, but Ryan, you were busy, obviously, on draft day. We didn't get you for that first pick. The Chiefs trade up. They go from 9 to 6. They get Monsore, Delane out of LSU. What was your reaction to that pick? And maybe has it changed? Have you settled a little bit since it happened?
It's confirmed for me. I just kind of like to roll with it. So while I was live, giving up 2 extra picks to go up just 3 spots, I was not happy with. Then I got to thinking, and literally as we're on air, I'm like, well, maybe they had to get in front of the Saints. I could see why they might be coming to get Delane, so maybe they felt they had to jump them. If that's what you had to do, that's what you had to do, because there's nobody after him. And I actually had McCoy landing in the second, so I felt there was like a 45 or a 50 slot drop off for that. I had no idea that it was going to be the top of the 4th for the guy that I had on film, the number 2 corner in this group. So he was definitely in rare air. And then Brett Veach confirmed that it was the Saints they were worried about. So I think overall, they got themselves a player that can reduce their biggest offseason loss. And I think a guy that has so many similarities, I could see him growing into a similar role, maybe a little bit more on the outside. But I like the pick. Are you guys happy with it?
Well, it definitely, was a position of need, like we talked about during the draft. I mean, they did a great job of kind of the smoke screen. They never talked corner up there. It was always, offensive tackle. They didn't even take an offensive tackle, and all these other spots. But I think, overall, they did a great job of, addressing some needs. We'll see. You never know how these drafts turn out until a couple years down the line. But, if Delane was their guy that they had targeted all along, hey, like Aaron was saying, go get the guy that you like. Go get the guy that you really like. He was the number 1 consensus ranked number 1 corner. So, obviously they felt that was their biggest need, and they addressed it. So, hey, you got to be happy for them. That's what they chose to do.
I'll say this because I hate to ever think that Aaron is right about something, but he could actually be. It could be a conspiracy theory where Brett Veach may actually watch this show because, well, I know I never thought it was going to be an offensive tackle being drafted. Now, anybody else in the show may have, but I never was fooled by that. But we did talk about cornerback being a need because, of course, they lost both of their corners. And so I don't know, JC thought that, and I did to an extent, that if they were to get a corner, it would probably be with the 29th pick, maybe not the first pick that they had. And, and I did talk about on the show how if there was going to be a trade partner, we're probably going to be with Cleveland. To what price? I think all 4 of us were probably a little shocked that, giving up a couple of extra picks. But, as Brett Veach said in the press a little bit later, that he was concerned about New Orleans. I didn't think that was their biggest need, but that's the story he has to go with. Then to justify the 2 draft picks that he gave up and the swap. Okay, cool. I'll go with that. So I don't mind the draft pick at all, because I think when we talked about it and we went through Ryan's guide, I think he was the guy that I actually pointed out that was like, hey, tell me about this guy here. So not that I got an eye for this stuff, because that's not what I do. But no, I mean, I really, yeah, I appreciate it. But no, I really do. And I did pick the Cyrus Allen as well. But I really do think that the Chiefs, I know, but I really do think that the Chiefs got a good pick with that number. When you take the emotions out of it, you be like, man, you gave up this to get that. You sit back and look at it, look at the needs, look at the cost of what he is for. I think like $42 million for about 4 years, I think it is, versus what Trent got, and knowing that you already got a pencil in as a starter and stuff like that. I think for the value, and then getting a chance to talk to him on the Zoom and stuff, he's ready for that smoke, as I talked about previously. And I think he's going to do well in Spagnuolo's system in here in Kansas City.
Delane surrendered a completion percentage of just 27.8%. That was third best in FBS. 67% of his targets were contested, which is tied for second highest in the SEC. Kansas City stays put at 29, which I know was some of the questions that we talked about on the stream. Would they move up? Would they stay put? They stay put at 29, and they get Peter Woods, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. Obviously, there is some depth at that position with the Tonga signing, and then obviously Chris Jones and what they do in moving him around. But they do address the D-line room in general. How about we start with you on JC? You, JC, on this one. What do you make of Peter Woods at 29 to KC?
Well, I mean, he was ranked the second ranked number 2 at his position, the second ranked defensive tackle by ESPN, the 27th overall, and they got him at 29. So you would think it's a good pick, a position of need, and he's an inside guy. So, I know they said his arms, aren't that long either, that 31 and a half or something.
We know you hate that. My goodness.
No, but inside, it's not as big of a deal as it is outside. So, uses quickness. I know during the broadcast, they said that, he's got his motor has to keep running nonstop. Sometimes he seems to take some plays off or whatever, and he doesn't show up. But, I think especially when you're a rookie coming in, that's never an issue, because you have older guys that are pushing you, and so I don't think that's going to be an issue. So I think it's a good pick. Again, a position of need. We talked about that as well. And, I don't think you can go wrong with it.
Ryan, I know there were some detractors that said that Woods underachieved at Clemson. What would be your response to that?
Yeah, they're right. He did. But I think Brett Veach was very honest about the fact, and if you listen to some of the phone calls too, they were on him since 23. And the rise that he put in, the season he had in 2024, he was a monster. I had him at the top of the board coming into 2025. And then Clemson just was not an environment conducive to success, is the best way I can put it. Because every defender, honestly, everybody on there, you can ask Cade Klubnik as well, was not able to produce the way that they expected. Everybody had down year. For me, I held it against Woods a little more than I held it against TJ Parker, because TJ Parker pushed through and he was much less of a drop off from 24 to 25 than Woods was. And I had them very closely graded. So that is the reality. But if you know the circumstances, and I've never been inside the Clemson rooms, I've never talked to their strength coach or anybody else. If you know the circumstance and you're comfortable that 2024 Peter Woods is what you're getting, then they got a screaming deal. And I think they did well.
You were on these Zooms, Darren. What'd you learn about Peter Woods?
One, that he is a baller. One of the I did learn that was kind of shocking was when I asked him about being ready for Andy Reid's training camp. He and even Cyrus are like, that I don't know. I guess their biggest thing is that Andy's training camp is not going to be anything compared to what they faced in college. I'm just like, just be patient. And so I love the confidence. I love the gravitas. He knows, he knows that he's not going to come in starting right away. So he knows he has a little bit of time to kind of learn the ropes, learn under Chris Jones. And what I do like about these players is that they're confident in themselves, but they also know what they don't know, and they're humble enough to know that hey, I'm going to be surrounded by championship players that I can learn from. Take stuff that they that they give me, utilize that in my own game, and that'll make me a better player. So for the most part, just the fact that he's confident, but also not too confident, that he knows that he can continue to get better.
And I think he's in a good position to where he doesn't have to come in and start with the expectations of contributing right away. He can come in and get humbled in St. Joe by that training camp. Maybe he's a candidate to puke on the first day, like we've seen some rookies in the past. He learns from some vets in the room. He understands what the expectations are, and he goes into the fold and tries to make contributions for Steve Spagnuolo's defense. KC used their first 4 picks on defense as we continue our recap of their draft in 2026. They go R. Mason Thomas at 40th overall, so no trades in the 2nd and 3rd pick for KC after they move up from 9 to 6. They get R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma. Despite not being fully healthy, he applied a pressure rate of 14.6% in his pass rush attempts in 2025, was a team captain, first team all SEC. They're liking this Oklahoma connection, Ryan. The running backs coach, they got a couple OU guys and now R. Mason Thomas.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Some personal vouching does help, although plays on the other side of the ball than that coach. But this is a guy that honestly I wrote off because he's such not a Spags guy. He's built like a 3-4 outside linebacker. He can't put his hand in dirt. I like his takeoff better from a 2-point stance. But it was honestly something that I graded him for another team, to be honest. He came out in 81 on my board, which is a top 50-ish grade, right kind of around the border. So they got him a good value. I think they did well. And I think he rounded out what I think they're trying to do is be a little bit more outlier. I think Woods is a little undersized. He's a little arm length, whatever you want to call it. He weighed in at the combine sub 300 pounds, 241 for our Mason. So also much lighter than we see George Karlaftis or Nashon Gelati or anybody that they've brought into that role recently. So I like the fact that they're scouting themselves and they're breaking their own tendencies, and hopefully that speed rush is going to be much more well utilized than it was for Josh Uche, because I thought that they might have had an eye on something then. So let's hope that this is the next step forward.
Breaking their tendencies. I love to hear it, JC.
Well, we'll see. Here's a little light. They probably feel like they can put some weight on them, as they feel like they can do with everyone. But it remains to be seen. I mean, they obviously saw something that they liked in the kid and thought that he can come in and fit in. So, you got no choice but to, if they like him, we got to love him, because, they know what they want. They know what they've scouted, and they know what they need. So all we can do is support it. But, all these guys are going to get an opportunity to get on the field at some point, and what they do from there is going to determine how much they're going to stay on the field. So, again, a position of need. We talked about it. We said that they needed an edge and possibly an inside guy, and they got the inside guy, and then they got the edge. So, you can't be mad at them. They addressed the need.
And the one thing about Kansas City, I was just looking at the list. They stay within their Power 5 conference. I mean, they make sure that they got players who perform at big schools and perform in big conferences where they, got a chance, where everybody got a chance to see them and stuff, where they could get a closer view. And look, you talk about having relationships. I mean, I know we'll talk about it soon, but Emmett Johnson, I think the Chiefs had, one of the former Chiefs running back coaches was the running back coaches over at Nebraska. So, and of course, with the Dave Merritt's son going out there, you still got that connection where he had connections out there as well. So I just think when you look at what they do on film, and a lot of these scouts and coaches did, I think that they feel like, what he has can transfer over to the line. And look, at the end of the day, you need some young players, as JC talked about, that's going to push, some of these veterans, because I mean, we got to keep it real. I mean, both Chris Jones and George Karlaftis were, they had down years last year, and maybe they got a little bit fat off the contracts. Now you got some younger players, you got some free agents that's going to come in that's going to be hungry, that wants to win, and that's going to push them in. And I know we're not going to really talk about it, but now that they don't do the compensatory picks for these free agents out here, now the Chiefs can actually go out and sign some free agents that won't cost them any picks or whatever. So, so they can essentially bring, veteran defensive edge, in that could go alongside Chris Jones and Karlaftis as well.
We continue our recap of the 2026 NFL Draft on the other side. You're listening to the Chief Squad Show here on the Locked On Podcast Network. The NFL Draft is officially in the rearview mirror, where preparation meets opportunity and every decision matters. It's all about being ready when your moment comes, and that same mindset applies off the field as well. That's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet offers treatment designed to help you feel ready and confident when it matters most. Their top option, Rugiet Ready, is a mint that dissolves under your tongue with clinically proven ingredients. It works quickly, often in about 15 minutes, and can last up to 36 hours. They also offer Go Long, designed to help with both performance and control. It's all about showing up at your best whenever your moment is. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL to get 15% off your ED treatment. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Rugiet, performance medicine for men. We are back in on the Chief Squad Show here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Aaron Ladd, JC Pearson, Darren Smith, and Ryan Tracy recapping the 2026 NFL Draft. Don't forget to check out the Everydayers Club for ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with other listeners of the show. Tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedonchiefs.supercast.com. Let's continue with Kansas City's draft picks. The round number 4, pick 109 overall. Kansas City takes the cornerback out of Oregon, Jadon Canady. I am reading from ESPN's write-up on him. They say Canady is a perfect candidate to compete for the starting nickel role in the secondary for Spags. He has ball skills demonstrated throughout his college career, where he can be a quality cover man in the middle of the field who is more than willing to make an impressive tackle as well. Ryan, in your lead into the episode, you said, hey, some of these guys will see the field. Some of these guys may need a little bit more seasoning. Where are you at on Canady?
I'm 50-50 on him, and it's honestly not anything to do with him because I like his game. He's crafty. He's very aware, and he puts himself in positions to affect the ball, and that's what's most important. He's a little bit on the lighter side, but I think the bigger question is where is Kenner Kohu in his recovery? I think it's going to be kind of a battle right here, youth versus experience. And I think they're both feisty, and I think that brings a little bit edge back to that position because Trent McDuffie is more of a technician in my eyes than somebody that's going to go out and kind of manhandle the slot guys and try to keep them off their breaks and keep their stem all off kilter. So I really want to see how this battle works out. But I will say this, what they've done in this offseason is maneuver themselves so Chamari Connor doesn't have to be their nickel, which I think is a plus overall. And they have depth at all 3 corner positions, and I think that's what they're looking for.
JC, this is your department. What you think?
Well, I think I think it was good pickup. I mean, the kid can play. I mean, when you look at the video and you look at I think he had the highest incompletion percentage, or what, however they word that. But so the guy can cover, obviously, and like Darren said, came from a big conference, so it's not like he played against a bunch of nobodies. So the kid obviously can play. He's quick, and they need that inside guy, that guy that can go down in the slot and play. And like Ryan said, the competition is what they did is they did a great job of bringing these guys in and adding to the competition of these positions. So nobody's comfortable. Everybody's got to go out and battle and win the job. And he's going to get an opportunity to do that. It's not going to just be given to him or anybody else. So they got to go fight for it. But they did a great job of bringing in some talent to compete. And that's what makes everybody better.
Darren, these first 4 picks all on defense. We talked with Vice President of Player Personnel, Ryan Nutt, via Zoom after this draft 2026. And he said, hey, this wasn't exactly the plan. It just kind of shook out that way. We wanted the corner at 6. We knew that was the plan, but the rest was just kind of best player available. It wasn't specifically targeting the defense. Are you buying that, or do you think that's just kind of coach speak on the back end?
A little bit of both. I mean, because you never know how the draft is going to turn out. Because again, I think the pick that threw a lot of people off was Tennessee taking Carnell Tate at number 4, because there were other teams that, had he fell to them, would have taken him, like, perhaps Cleveland, because they probably would have been pressured because of the area and Ohio State ties and stuff like that, and they needed a player on offense. And then if he would have fell to Kansas City, perhaps Kansas City would have taken him, just by him being a safe pick. So no, I think it's a little bit of both. Just that, at the end of the day, it just things really just played out how they wanted it to. I mean, I think they essentially got the players that they were hoping to get, that were on the draft board. And I mean, like we showed that night, it was just Christmas for Spags that night, this weekend essentially. So I like it.
Any final thoughts? I know we'll talk a little bit of defense later in the episode, but any final thoughts on Canady or any of the guys before we move on to the offensive side of the ball?
No, I think, well, for me, I know the biggest thing is that, Spags has gotten out of that, I guess, get off my line curmudgeon, coming to Kansas City where, he wasn't known for starting rookies or playing rookies in the system. Of course, when he got here, you had Juan Thornhill, and then it just seemed like every year, he was putting a new, and that's just basically how Kansas City does it, because they want to maximize these young players on these rookie deals while you got Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones and Travis Kelce on these big contracts. So you got to maximize them right away. So Spags had to, Spags had to kind of understand how the system is going to work here in Kansas City. But the Chiefs have done a good job of drafting quality players that can play right away within Spags' system. Essentially, Trent McDuffie and some of these other players, and of course, as we'll see what the Monsore, he'll get the first crack at the starting position on defense, while the other players, if they play well or if they practice well, they'll get their opportunities, because they will be mixing them in with the starters throughout training camp. So when they get to the preseason and the start of the season, the lights won't be too bright for them.
In round 5, 161 overall, Kansas City takes an offensive player for the first time in the 2026 draft. It is the running back out of Nebraska, Emmett Johnson. He has plenty of burst, showed quality dynamic ability last season, 15 total touchdowns, 1,800 all-purpose yards, possibly an early role as a third down back. This is all from our guy, Nate Taylor, considering he collected 85 receptions the past 2 seasons. I've been asking for it. If your run game isn't dynamic between the tackles, find a way to get those guys involved in the passing game. We know Kenneth Walker can do that. We know Amari DiMarcado can do that. Maybe Emmett Johnson slides in, or maybe he needs a little bit more seasoning. JC, how about you kick us off on this one before you go around the horn?
Well, I like the pick. I mean, once you get down there to the 5th round, you're just kind of, seeing who's still around, and then trying to find a kind of a diamond in the rough. But again, a kid that's coming from a big program, big conference, that has had some success, and I think, when you look at that running back room, it was still a little light, right? I mean, it was DiMarcado, it was the first 2, and then we still don't know what's going on with Smith. Nobody says anything about him. Is he a running back? Is he a receiver? Is he a return person? Whatever. So still a little light, and he could, so Emmett Johnson, he may be able to fill in that short yardage role that what's his name? I'm drawing a blank. They had last year here. Kareem, yeah. So maybe that they don't bring Kareem back. Maybe this kid, because he runs with some power, some strength. Maybe they want him to fill that role. So again, competition, and let the best guys cream rise to the top.
Ryan, what you got on Emmett Johnson?
I'm just trying not to smile. This kid was my number 3 running back. I had him at the top of the 3rd. That's how much I believe in him. It does help. My wife is a Husker, so I do watch a lot of his film live.
Biased.
Little bit. But the thing that I like about him, and I don't think he has to be limited to a 3rd down role, I think he can be a spell for Ken Walker. He is good between the tackles. He has an ability, and I'm not even going to say who he reminds me of, because it's just an unfair comparison. but he can turn his shoulders and still maintain his forward momentum and squeeze through some tighter holes, much like Walker can as well, right? So if you're worried about controlling the snap count and the touches for Ken Walker due to injury and everything else in the past, I think he's a kid that will eventually earn that second role. And DeMarcado might be the battering ram a little bit more. And if Smith stays, which I think he will, I think he's really a returner first and maybe that fourth swing kind of third down type back in longer situations.
Yeah, I mean, to me, and this is piggybacking off of what JC said, behind Kenneth Walker, nothing's set in stone. Anybody can earn their keep. Anybody can go in and prove to the coaches that they can play a role and impact what's happening. I mean, behind Kareem Hunt last year, nothing really impressed me. We knew Isaiah Pacheco was on the way out. If he comes in and flashes and picks up the playbook early, which is another thing we've seen from rookies with all the terminology and what KC likes to do, hey, man, the opportunity's there in front of you. I wonder what you make of it, Darren.
I'll put it like this, and I know we'll talk about it in just a second, but the Chiefs really made their 5th-round draft pick based off the first game that was played at Arrowhead last year, and it wasn't with the Chiefs. It was between Nebraska and Cincinnati. They got a chance to see these players up close, right in person, talking to them, talking to them pre-game, probably after the game and stuff like that. So they got a real close look at Johnson and, of course, Allen that we'll talk about in just a second. So, again, the Chiefs don't normally cut their draft picks. I think back to 2022 when Trent Autumn came, I think, they drafted 10 players, 9 of them, most of them started, a lot of them, contributed to that Super Bowl winning team and done so. So for me, as long as he performs well in practice, they will find a spot for him on the roster, whether it's return or just short yardage. Well, I mean, look, obviously Kenneth Walker is a starter, and I'm not taking, but he's going to get reps. I mean, Kenneth Walker is not going to play the entire game. He's going to have to get some blows. I know. When I look at the depth chart right now, he's I think he's number 3, and Brashard Smith is number 4. So the question is, what's going to happen to him versus the rookie pick that we got this year.
And then they signed a couple free agent running backs also that, so obviously, but you got to go in with some numbers anyway, to get guys through OTAs and training camp and that kind of stuff. But, if you're a running back, this is a good place to be, trying to make a team because like you guys are saying, there's opportunity all over. And we know that the Chiefs aren't afraid to keep an undrafted guy if he shows and flashes. So these guys, it's wide open. Their careers are in their hands going forward.
Ryan, if you had him at 3, why did he slide all the way to the 5th round?
It's really just about the overall value, right? I mean, I don't think many expected Price to go there at the bottom of 1. And then it was a good bit before everybody got going. It was a toss-up. It was very close grade between him and Mike Washington out of Arkansas as well. And I do think Mike went first. I'll have to double-check that. But I think overall it was just that, honestly, the thing that threw it off was the run of blocking tight ends of all things, because people are panicked about the quality offensive line. Let's all get a blocking tight end, whether he can catch or not. I think that kind of threw everything after that off a little bit.
You never know how the board is going to shake out. And we heard Brett Veach talk about that a little bit. We heard the Chiefs kind of reveal the curtain on what their deception was and how other teams might have deceived. People are afraid to admit that they had meetings. I saw the Rams talking about keeping things secret. And then when you're in a draft, like we talked about multiple times, where people have different evaluations in different places and somebody's team needs are over here and what their scheme fit. You see talented guys like this slide into the 5th round. We are recapping each and every one of Kansas City's picks in the 2026 NFL draft on this episode. Let's take a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk about the last 2 picks for Kansas City, as well as some UDFA signings. And hey, do all these defensive players put pressure on defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo? We answer that on the other side. You're listening to the Chief Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. Quick break. Didn't take long. Aaron Ladd, JC Pearson, Darren Smith, and Ryan Tracy talking NFL draft. We appreciate you making us part of your day. If you're already this far, you're a fan. You know it. There's no shame in admitting it. Just go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. Kansas City's draft continues in round number 5. We're still in the 5th round. 176 overall. The wide receiver out of Cincinnati, Cyrus Allen, who Darren Smith was on for a very long time, and apparently so was Kansas City. Allen had his best season as a senior at Cincinnati, recording 13 receiving touchdowns for the school's single-season record. Darren, what stood out to you, and how do you think he can make an impact in Kansas City?
I got a chance to talk to him Monday. I think either Monday or yesterday I talked to him on a space on X, and he's really, it was yesterday because of the WNBA. So he's very sure of himself. Let me start by saying that, and he knows, he feels like he will be a great addition to the wide receiver room. He is looking forward. I think he said the first text he got when he was drafted was from Travis Kelce, shouting him out and, telling him, hey, when you get here, we linking up. And I think he's got another teammate that's going to be here as well. So, I like his confidence. He's a real good kid, saying off the field, just from conversation with him, because he doesn't do a whole lot. Like, he's a family guy. So one of the things that you don't have to worry about when he comes here is getting in any type of trouble. Like when he's away from the stadium, he'll be home, on his game system. That's what he likes to do. So, hey, look, consider we have wide receivers that we have to worry about from time to time. That's good that we don't have to worry about that with him. But I think what he brings to the field, he can play all three. He can play all three positions, and I do see him. He has what he feels is a chip on the shoulder. He said to me that, he's going to make sure when he hits the field, he's going to take it out on all 31 teams that passed, saying that passed up on him. So, so for him, that's what he uses for motivation. I'm all for it. And, I know he had an issue. I think he had an injury when he was a freshman. But since then he's been pretty good. And he's also a pretty good returner. But just from talking to him, he just wants to come in, learn the playbook, find out where Andy Reid wants him to be at, figure out how he can help, and just do his role. That's what he said. He just wants to come in and whatever the coaches ask of him is what he's going to do.
But is he a dog, Ryan? This panel has been asking for a dog in the wide receiver room. Is Cyrus Allen going to come in and be that alpha, that guy that sets the tone?
Ask all those guys that he broke their ankles. Yeah. He got some of that in him. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be we're going to have to see what that room turns into, but I like the pick. I like the fact that he was not the most coveted guy, quote unquote, in that class either. His teammate, Jeff Caldwell, who is a UDFA as well, because he's got that stature and one of the most athletic guys in here. So I think the Chiefs did really well flying under the radar a little bit with Cyrus, because they got him exactly where I thought his value was. I think there's a clear path for him to try to help move some pieces around on the offense where he can just be a guy that works out of the slot, and that's where he's comfortable. That Xavier and Rasheed move around a little bit more. I think that makes the threat against the defense more definitive. So I like what he brings. We'll see when he gets on the field.
Yeah, I think he's got a chance because he brings what they don't have right now, and that's that guy that can work out of the slot. Xavier's really an outside guy. Rasheed's an outside guy. Tyquan's an outside guy, down the field type guys. This is a smaller guy. He's only like 5'11", 180. So he's going to have to work out of that slot, be able to get off the press inside, but he gets in and out of his breaks. And if he can find that role, if he can define himself in that role, I don't see him really being that outside guy. But if he can, he can bring something in the slot that they don't have on this roster right now. And if he can do that, then, he'll find a nice little role.
All right, Darren, we're talking wide receiver room. So the chat chimes in. Do we need Tyreek Hill? We got Cyrus Allen at the crib. We don't need Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, we get
different guys. Yeah. Different players.
Yeah. Tyreek's coming, man. Just be patient.
Folks, little PSA. You can agree with the man without typing out that he's right, okay? Can you give the three of us a break?
Hey, I had nothing to do with that. I promise you. I got us on full screen, so I'm not reading the comments at all. Until Aaron
I've been rolling with Tyreek too ever since they let him go. So yeah.
Final pick of Kansas City's 2026 NFL draft in round number 7, 249 overall. They take the quarterback out of LSU, Garrett Nussmeier. Remember, Justin Fields only under contract for 1 season. Gives Nussmeier a chance to season, learn from 2 veterans in Mahomes and Fields, as well as the offensive mastermind in Andy Reid. He had some memorable moments at LSU. Was kind of a roller coaster guy, and we've talked about it when we talked about Clemson. Hey, it wasn't a great year. It wasn't a great year for LSU either. They lose their head coach and whatnot. But I think personally, and I led with this on the intro, talking about the 2 LSU guys, the Bayou Bengals. You can't replicate that SEC experience, especially at the quarterback position. I believe he's the son of a coach or the son of somebody who's in the NFL world as well. So he knows what it's like to be a professional, to work in that light. And who else better to learn from than Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid? Let him sit on ice. Let him develop. I do not want to see him in any type of action like Chris Oladokun was forced into this year. I want this to be a redshirt year for Garrett Nussmeier, potentially learning in the preseason and beyond to be the backup of the future. I wonder if that's in the cards, in your opinion, panel of experts.
I think that's what they're hoping, that he gets back to the what he showed a couple years ago. Last year wasn't a great year for him, whether he was injured or dealing with injury or whatever. But, in the 7th round, you take a flyer, and if it works out, great. And if not, it's a 7th round pick. But, I think they know that Oladokun is not the guy, after 4 years to get an opportunity and play the way he played, there's no reason to really keep him around, is it? You saw, and so I think there's that opportunity also there too. But yeah, I don't expect him. I don't think they expect for him to get any time.
Second time.
I think this. Yeah, I mean, I think to be honest, I think this more a reflection of Chris Oladokun. I told you didn't play well last year, and bringing this gentleman, bringing this quarterback in. I mean, obviously he'll be on the roster. I don't know what this means for Chris. I mean, put him on the practice squad or cut him at the end of training camp. I don't know, but it's a 7th round pick, so it's good value. And like you said, son of a coach, so he knows how the game is going to be played. And he's someone that played SEC, started, so he played at a high level institution. So I don't have any problem with this pick at all. I mean, he's not going to be starting. He's not going to be the Chiefs starting quarterback during his rookie contract. Because Mahomes will probably he'll still be the starting quarterback in these next 4 years unless something happens. And so knocking on wood that doesn't. So I mean, good backup. I mean, look, people make a lot of money as a backup quarterback. So I guess, no problem with it.
Ryan, is it better off using this value elsewhere, though? And maybe where did you have Nussmeier on your board in your evaluations?
This is the second time it happened to me this year. So I think he fell specifically for 2 reasons. One, I understand the interviews weren't that great. Thought that he was in a different place than maybe some of the evaluators are. He's also a guy that his best season was 2024. And also, just like Peter Woods, coming into this season, he was nearly the consensus number 1 at quarterback in this draft class. He was on my board at the time. Fernando Mendoza was not a factor when that season began last year. Garrett Nussmeier was the number 2 quarterback on my board, barely hedging out Ty Simpson. And to get him in the 7th, spinal cyst or not, is maybe the best investment. This is all ceiling. This is no risk. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, you've lost next to nothing but a priority free agent that you probably would have grabbed in that spot, right? But if it works, and if he can conform to the system and understand and learn, not only could it be a career backup, as Darren was saying, which I think is really nice to have now that the script is flipped and Patrick is the old man in the room, right? And we're not looking to bring in a ton of veterans, right? But the other option is you show him off next preseason and he balls out, you can flip him when somebody gets injured. This could be an investment that goes from a 7th. Maybe you get a third or a fourth back, and that is good time spent on my book.
Yeah, the potential flip is something that Jake Price in the comments points out as we wrap up our draft picks. Any UDFA stand out for Kansas City? We talked about Jeff Caldwell, the other wide receiver out of Cincinnati that comes to Kansas City. Did y'all talk about him on the Daily Show as potentially cracking in as we do a little UDFA roundup here?
Yeah, I was trying to tamp down the expectations. He's UDFA for a reason. He was not drafted despite being the best athlete in the wide receiver group this year. But I do think between the body and the possibility, if he can cut out the drops, he's going to be all right. He was 33rd in the class in drop rate. So not exemplary, but I think with pro coaching, he might have a chance to be a guy that's practice squad this year, and maybe he can compete for a role next year.
Hey, look, I'm old school, man. I'm always going to go with EJ, Emmett Smith Jr., man. You know, I mean, this name alone. I mean, I got to, you know, he might have some of the daddy DNA, you know, he got all daddy DNA in the way he might be a decent running back. So you never know. You never know.
Yeah. The kid from Rockhurst that went to Wyoming, the tight end, and they guaranteed him $200,000. So if they're going to guarantee you $270,000, you're going to be around, whether practice squad or something. But you know, if you're going to give an undrafted kid that contract and guarantee that money, obviously they like him for a reason. They think he might be able to develop into something.
I was going to say, JC, the Chiefs, to their credit, they do normally take care of the little area folk, you know what I'm saying, the little Big 12 schools, little, you know, some of these, you know, they generally do take care of them, you know, giving a little extra money.
Yeah, but they guaranteed that money. They guaranteed the $200,000. Yeah.
Well, now correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't most of these UDFAs don't are most of their contracts guaranteed, or just a signing bonus?
Just the bonuses.
No,
Okay.
yeah. Bonus might be $5,000, might be, you know, it just depends on where they're at. But no, yeah. And I believe they gave him 20 to sign and guaranteed him like 270 or 275 or something, which is no, for an undrafted kid. Yeah, you're not getting that contract unless you're going to be around.
The guy that I like to make it is right up your alley, JC, Bryce Phillips, the other DB from San Diego State. They gave him like 247. So similar situation. And I like the way he plays, a little bit more of an off man or zone guy, but
and San Diego State, man, they put out corners. If they do anything, they put out corners. And they've done that, you know, historically. They do a good job with their defensive backs out there. Obviously, the one guy was the second corner taken, and then this guy gets a good deal with the Chiefs. But yeah, they do a great job with their corners out there, San Diego State.
Who's our favorite new Chief? If we go around the horn, who's our favorite new Chief and why?
Got to be Delane, right? I mean, you know, he's supposed to be the man. So, you know, I'm anxious to see him bring that LSU Tiger swag to Kansas City and see what he can do.
I'm gonna go with Delane, but I'm also gonna say Cyrus. I know for me personally, they're gonna be good interviews to get throughout the season and stuff if they perform well, and even if they don't, because you still want to get a chance to talk to them, to give them an opportunity to see, you know, both the good and the bad. They have some highs, lows, and talk to them and see how they respond. But I will say this: most of the players that we talk to seem to be real already media savvy. How they know how to talk and address the media. So, you know, kind of answer questions. And when I say that, you know, just in answering their questions and stuff like that. So it'll be, you know, I think the Chiefs did well because I think they did well by not only getting good players on the field, but players that with some character off the field.
And Allen's the small school guy, right?
Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's. I mean, now
big
used to be group of five, right? So yeah, now they're up in the big leagues, right? So yeah, that says something. My favorite pick is our Mason Thomas because it hit me out of left field because it's such a trend breaker. But I think that's what's been missing in this defense for the last 4 or 5 years, not just the last 2, is being able to get after that passer with speed. And I just don't think they have it. I think it's going to make a difference.
Yeah, I'll stay in the defensive line room. I'll take Peter Woods. I trust Joe Cullen. It's a name we haven't mentioned yet. One of the best special teams or specialist coaches on the roster. We've talked about him getting the best out of anybody who comes into his room. And then, I mean, it is draft day. You got to have the drip. The way that he coordinated having the black on when all of his family had the white on around him. Like,
he had really, green.
I thought it was black.
I kid well. From my best point, green, but whatever it was, he was clean. They were clean.
I appreciate the attention to detail. Like that, you didn't like that, JC?
No, I'm saying I don't like I don't like the big dudes, man, being all suave and all. Yeah, man. You want them dogs, man. Them,
they need to be grimy. They need to look like they.
Yeah, I know it's a different day, different age, but man, I don't like the big boys trying to be too smooth. They need to be, get down and dirty, and I don't care how I look. He'll go hit somebody, but it's a different day and age, man. What can you say?
Shout out to all the little girlfriends that actually let the moms hug their sons first before they try to get on the camera time.
Yeah.
One final break. We will talk Steve Spagnuolo on the other side. You listen to the Chiefs Squad show here in the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, so you heard it here first. If you're getting drafted and if you're a defensive lineman, it needs to be bare minimum. No extra frills.
Look grimy, look like you're hungry out there.
Yeah, some jeans and a hoodie. Let's go to work, man.
If you gonna wear a necklace,
gotta look
you got
overalls.
A bone on
yeah, some Timberlands. Let's go, man.
Tell them, JC, and look, and don't be iced out. Just have a necklace with a
right.
bone on it. Show that you're hungry,
man. Let's go. Smiling. Let's go.
The Chiefs spend their top 4 picks of the 2026 NFL draft on the defensive side of the ball. Monsore, Delane, Peter Woods, R. Mason Thomas, and Jadon Canady are new members of the Kansas City Chiefs, making a very happy Steve Spagnuolo. We get different pieces of the draft, especially behind the scenes through the social media accounts. And I think after that first day, the team posted Spags smiling and hugging Brett Veach and members of the front office because he knows he's got some new resources coming to his department. But does this turn up the pressure? And this was your topic du jour, Darren, in the chat. Are we looking at, and I know this was another topic of conversation from my guy C-Dot online saying that the KC draft kind of indicated that maybe some of the deficiencies last year were talent related. How do you look at how they approach this draft and where they go forward?
Well, for me, when I pose the question, there's more pressure on Spaz just because you gave him more stuff to work with, but also you had to replace a lot of stuff that you allowed to walk out the door, whether it's just contracts, free agency, aspects of the business. So be it. So you had to allow him to shop for his groceries more or less, and so. He was very instrumental within that draft war room with the players that they ended up selecting for him. And so I think because of that, yes, okay, you kind of got the players that you felt, that were high up on the board that landed in your lap. Now that you got what you wanted, now let's see what you do with it. And I think he, as a former head coach and as a coach himself, is up for that type of challenge. And I think he welcomes it because when you talk to players, when we talk to them on the Zoom and stuff, that's all they talked about, saying like getting together with Spags and getting with Chris and getting with the defense. And they talked about trying to help this team get back to the Super Bowl and get back to that swagger and that winning ways and stuff like that. So they already know what they're going to be walking into. Now, it's going to be different talking about it than once you walk in and actually got to go through it and go through the 9 to 5 of it. So for me, I think he's up for the challenge. I don't want to – Pressure might have been too strong of a word, but I think he's up for the challenge and trying to get these players up to snuff in his system because he does have a pretty complex system that a lot of rookies, are kind of forced to play. But the thing is, when you come in, this is all you know. So whatever you did in college, you can just throw it out the window. So you come in and you learn the system, you're going to be a player. And I think, for the most part that it's going to work out in their favor.
Not just the draftees, Ryan. Remember, they signed Gilman, they signed Tonga, they signed Kohu. How do you put this whole picture together for Spags' unit?
I personally see it a little bit differently. I feel like he's been asked to do more with less the last few years.
That's fair.
And I think it was his time. In terms of like pressure to leave Kansas City, I think the only pressure on Steve Spagnuolo is from Mrs. Spagnuolo. That's the only thing I can see, because he's been able to roll with the punches and go generation after generation and get them trained up. So I think, to Darren's point, it is a complex system. I think it's more mentally challenging to the DBs than it is to the front. So for going with the Aloy as the veteran in the room, I think that helps that pass. I think they kept Christian Fulton for that reason as well. I think you'd afford to go a little bit more younger and a little bit more rabid with the front than you can with the back.
Yeah, I don't think there's any pressure on him, for his job at all. Yeah, and he's got no control over the guys that left. Those are salary cap issues and money issues, and he's got to deal with the consequences of that. But he's got some guys now that and with younger guys, you can't expect all those guys to come in and just ball out, start and ball out, other than the one. Because they went up to 6 to get him. So the expectations are a lot higher on him, and he's already penciled in. So outside of him, the other guys, you try to get them up to speed and hope that they can grasp the system and hope that they can flash and show. But they're those guys up front, they rotate those guys anyway. So, those guys are going to be, in and out anyway. And then you don't know what's going on with the corner. So you can't the slot guy. So you can't expect them to take all these young guys and develop them year one and make this, whatever, but, other than the one. So, definitely no pressure, but I think he'll do a good job, as they always have with this defense.
I know there was some conversation last year about him possibly dumbing down. I know that's not the best term to use, or oversimplifying or trying to change the scheme a little bit to make it easier to grasp and harder for teams to kind of latch on to. I know last year, towards the back end of the season, we heard teams come in and say, we know what they're going to do, we know what to expect, and we know how to attack it. Maybe with new players and kind of coming off of what was a down year, we see Spags kind of reinvent or maybe re-energize some aspects of the defense. Anybody agree or disagree strongly with that statement?
Yeah, I agree.
Well, obviously they have got to be a little more diverse. And, everybody knows that Spags wants to blitz. He's going to blitz. When things get tough, you're going to blitz. And honestly, just like Gunther back in the day, same thing, and teams knew it then and they know it now. And so, you can be a little more diverse and, play some more zone, mix some things up. But when it gets tight, Spags is Spags, and he's going to bring some pressure, and those guys are going to have to play man on the outside. And honestly, you guys talked about picking up his system and learning his system. The easiest thing to know and learn is the man coverages. 1, 0. The problem that they have is when they're switching, when they're in a bunch formation and having to pass guys off. But in terms of coverage, man coverage, I got him, you got him, let's go. The issues came when they were in the bunch coverages and they would cross, and sometimes they got mixed up as to who took who then. But,
I floated this on the day of the show, and I'd like your guys' opinions too, because I think there's a unique possibility here. I won't call it a challenge for Steve Spagnuolo, but I'd like to see them experiment with getting a little bit more multiple. Joe Cullen tends towards a 3-4 defense if he's the coordinator, right? Could you throw some looks in there? With Arm Mason, with Woods being maybe a little bit more suited for a 3-4 defense, like, could you get that and throw some teams off their game? That's what I'd like to see a little bit.
Yeah, sell it to Spags. Spags is the one that makes a final decision. He's the one that got to buy. You got to sell it to him well for I guess for him to buy into it. I don't have a problem with it. I think you always need to be open to changes and open to. I always think back to the movie Denzel's Remember the Titans went in the championship game, and Bill Paxton tells him, Coach, he's on to you. You got to show something that they haven't seen before. And that's something that in the SPAC system we haven't seen. So, I mean, every now and then I think it's okay to pull something out the bag that the teams haven't seen before, because especially like you said, if teams were coming in and they already knew his tendencies and what he's going to do, well, they already prepared for it. So you got to throw a few wrenches in there, wrinkles.
Yeah. The problem with defense and being a coordinator is you can only do so much, though, right? I mean, it's not like offense. You're going to draw up all these different formations and motions, and defense. You're going to, and that's why he blitzes a lot, because you want to dictate to the offense, make them adjust to you, as opposed to sitting back and having to adjust every time a guy goes in motion. Do we change coverages? Now they do this, do that, and now we're reacting to them. That makes you really passive. That's why those guys blitz a lot, and they're aggressive because they want to dictate to the offense. And, it gets a little more complicated, a little more sophisticated than that. But simply to simplify it, that's kind of what it is.
Hey, I see a couple questions in the chat. One around free agents. We will talk free agents and where Kansas City goes in free agency in our next episode. Remember, the Chief Squad show is live on YouTube Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Kansas City time, and in your podcast feeds immediately after. We'll do some free agent conversation in the next episode. But how about this question from the chat before we get out of here? Does Emmett Johnson fit this style of offense? Kansas City drafted him, obviously. In this one, the question from the chat wonders what his fit is, goes on to say they need a 4-2 guy, and Emmett Johnson looks a little slow.
4-2 guy. Ain't many of them.
If he was a 4-2 guy,
ain't many of them.
Xavier is back, right?
I mean, the closest guy went to Arizona, and his last name was Love, so that runs like that. So, but the thing is, look, the Chiefs find value, and you can find value in running backs in the 5th round. I mean, people forget Kareem Hunt was a 5th round draft pick from Toledo. So, I mean, put it like this, man. There was a lot of conversation between Brett Veach and Andy Reid. If Andy Reid didn't feel like he couldn't fit this offense, they wouldn't have drafted him. Plain and simple.
To answer your question, Whit, yes, he fits this system. He can run between tackles and zone or man. He catches the ball well, and he'll stick his face in there. He probably needs to work on his pass pro, but he'll try.
Good episode, fellas. Any final thoughts before we get out of here? Chief Squad show back on Thursday.
Nah, Chiefs. If I had to give them a grade, I'd give them a A- B+. Thought it was pretty good. I thought they hit. I would have, of course, liked for them to get a wide receiver in the 1st round, but I think filling the needs and getting and hitting pretty much most of the spots, and they didn't get a tackle. They're good in my book.
Well, yeah, now it's time to go. I'll be at the rookie dinner on Thursday. So hopefully I get a chance to talk to most of these guys. They're obviously right before the minicamp, but so I'll be there Thursday. May or may not be able to make it to the show in time, but should have some stories for you.
Darren, what'd they feed y'all at you were talking so big about the meal and falling asleep on stream.
Almost out.
What was the food?
Hey man, they had fillets. They had beef, steak fillets. They had chicken quarters, baked chicken quarters or oven roasted chicken quarters. They had lobster mac and cheese. They had asparagus, bread with the butter, of course, and then they had the cheeseburgers and the hot dogs, and then desserts just all around. I mean, and it's funny because I got on my little weight loss kick, so I needed some proteins. And Aaron, they like to waste this food. So, I came prepared this time around. I had my little container.
You brought Tupperware?
Wow. I did. Hey,
the draft.
But you know what though? See, while everybody's trying to laugh, when they started trying to take that food away, Herbie ran from the other media workroom back there, trying to grab. I said, Herbie, they finna take the food away.
What Herbie do to
what I was
you?
talking about? No.
Herbie stealing food too.
Herbie came running there.
Herbie stealing food.
Hey, Steve sitting right there next to me was like, man, I better go get some of this. Next, you know, he's got like 40 little to-go containers. I'm like, hold on. Yeah, I said they're cracking all these. And the people from the NFL Network, look, do not think that they all hired Sadidi. They just ghetto. Okay, they was over there. Was like,
Okay.
They were like, man, they just start going in there, getting all these steaks, getting all this chicken. Hey, that's just how it was, man. Hey, you can't let good food like that go to waste, man. You just
Great
can't.
show, fellas. We'll see you Thursday. Until then,
You gotta act
stay
like
safe.
you've been there before, bro.
Make good
And I
decisions.
have. I'm gonna do it again next year.